Okay. So there we are. So that's done. So there we are, Chairman. Up to you.
It seems such a long time since most of us have met, so hopefully this will go okay, because we needed to do something. Have you got any apologies for absence?
No, Chairman, not yet anyway.
Disclosures of personal and prejudice of interest?
No, okay. No. Not normally anyway.
Have everybody had a chance to read the minutes of the last meeting? So can you declare a true record, please?
Are you happy with the minutes, everyone?
Thumbs up.
Yeah, or a wave, or a, yeah, thank you. There we are. So Louise has got a hand on the corner.
Louise?
No.
No? Okay. David, would you like to start?
No.
It's all right. It's all right, Louise. Just take your hand down, Louise.
It's all right, I can do it.
You can do it, can it?
Yeah.
I can't do it well now.
She's done it.
No, David. David! Where's he gone? Can you start, David?
You need to unmute.
There we are. How's that?
Great.
I'm having a few Wi-Fi problems at home today. Not sure it's been perfect for the last 3 months. And the one day in the meeting, it sort of started playing up. Been a very strange time for events this year. Obviously, no air show, which is the main one that would affect this team. We're sort of waiting now really on government advice before we sort of plan forward anything. We've got a date in the calendar for next year already with respect to the air show, which is the 3rd and 4th of July. All we can do is best plan. Welsh Government were hoping or have trialled a number of events for 100 people recently. They were hoping to move that trial up to 500 in the next 3 to 5 weeks. That's been put on hold at the moment due to the sort of current outbreaks in Caerphilly and Rhondda and Taff and the expected sort of increase in some other areas. That leaves a lot of questions around any remembrance events. We've had a brief conversation with Phil Flower last week, and obviously the appetite is there to host some remembrance events, but currently the law in Wales is stuck around outdoor gatherings of 30 people. Unless that changes significantly, we're not really sure, but obviously it's a watching brief for us. We've got some plans to do something if we can, but it's very much a brief to see what happens and what changes are within the next 6 weeks or so. That's really all I've got to have today, Chair. Sorry.
Thank you, David. Just following on.
There we are.
Just following on for what David said, it has been very difficult because as Armed Forces champion, I've been to one thing where because we could have 30 people last Sunday. I did 2 videos for Armed Forces Day and VE Day, which went down very well. So it will be great if we could get back to some kind of normality with some kind of gathering, whatever size it would be, just to show people that we are still here and thinking about them.
Do you want to add anything, Spence?
Do you want anything?
No. Yeah.
Right. Captain Chris is on.
I'm not here yet, so whether you want to ask the
I'll ask.
gentleman from the Royal Navy.
Tim? Tim, are you there? Tim Williams?
Yeah, you need to unmute yourself, Tim. Oh, he's gone.
This is the trouble with this, isn't it? Oh.
Do you want to move on
Yeah,
to?
we'll have to move on if you can, if we see them come
Yeah.
back. Oh, what's that? No. Grace, would you like to give your update, please?
Thank you, Chair. Right, well, just want to say a huge well done to everyone who's sort of battled on through the coronavirus dilemmas. It was a brilliant meeting that they had with the Health Board the other week, which showed in true spirit the work, the collaboration that the Armed Forces and the Health Board did together. And I think we'd be in a lot worse state now if it hadn't been for that tremendous effort. And well done to all our local bodies that got involved in that. Fair play. I know it's been very difficult for a lot of the organisations. Some have been on furlough, some haven't, but then they've had to work remotely and find different ways of working. There's been a higher than normal contact with myself asking for support from the organisations and individuals themselves during this time. And I think it's very representative of the dilemmas that the whole community have experienced. A lot of it's to do with domestic abuse situations and resulting homelessness. And I think homelessness has been the biggest issue that we've come across time and time again during this period. The information I've been sending out on a regular basis, and sometimes it was very irregular. There were a couple of bulletins a day I was sending out at one point. Thank you to everyone who forwarded me information to go on out. I've had no end of compliments in from people, not for me personally, but for the content of those emails and the information and how on occasions it was so valuable to people. So that's been really good. The Welsh Government has sent an update recently, which I think Gareth did send out to everyone, but I'll give you a quick overview there. Their annual report for 2019 is out, and there's a link that I've sent out to everyone, but I'll resend it as well with an update I'll send after this meeting. The Welsh Government scoping exercise, they are now establishing different groups to look at how the needs that have been identified can be addressed. And to begin with, information sharing is the main one we're looking at there. There is an annual report with the UK Covenant, and I know that there are some local examples going into that. They've also touched on UK Armed Forces Covenant legislation, and if anything has driven me potty the last couple of weeks, it's been that. It appears that in the Queen's speech, they slipped in that veterans will have greater recognition for the services they have done for the country, which is brilliant and all well and good. Only they're trying to rush this legislation through, and it's not being very well planned, in my opinion. I've had sort of long meetings, video meetings with not just myself, my counterparts around Wales and the Welsh Local Government Association, and the Welsh Government with the UK Government, the MOD. I think it is too rushed. Be surprised if it goes through the UK Parliament, but what they're doing, they are, to use a military term, they're slipping it in under the radar in with the Armed Forces Bill. So it'd be interesting to see if that comes out. You might hear a lot about that in the media. What goes into that UK Armed Forces Bill is not necessarily what applies to us here in Wales. And the reason for that is it's covering the areas of health, housing, we've decided against social care, and health, housing and education. All those are matters that are devolved to Wales. So at a later date, the Welsh Government will look at separate legislation. So please do bear in mind, you might well see something in the press over the coming months that some great scheme has been brought in to benefit veterans, but if it's involved in those areas, it will be re-evaluated in Wales, and there'll be one coming out with a Welsh flavour to it. Another piece of UK-wide legislation that's been held up is the train pass that was going to come out for veterans. Now, for some reason, last year they decided they would announce it with the remembrance celebrations this year. And now they're saying because of, and I thought that was a long way off at that point, but now they're saying because of the COVID delays, it's being delayed further. So if you're wondering what's happened to that piece of benefit for veterans, it's still in the melting pot apparently. So we should hear more on that lately. There's a lot going on with our children in school. The Welsh Government and the WLGA applied for funding to put coordinators in for the different areas. So we are sharing a coordinator in Swansea with Neath Talbot and West Wales. That person has just been put into post, so I'm making contact with our education department, this person, and I'm hoping there'll be a greater amount of support in schools. One thing I tried to get over to schools sort of late last year, before, you know, the whole world changed, was that they've got to consider that in our schools there's an awful lot of children who are the children of reserve forces, and it's not just the regular forces that these considerations should apply to. There's grants available, there's all kinds of support available, and I think now, because a lot of our reservists have been deployed, and that has obviously affected the families, maybe the schools will take more notice and offer more support to the families of reservists as well. I just thank you very much. Communication's been the key over the last couple of months, and I think there's been some terrific examples of networking and how different organisations have come together to support each other and put different things in place. I did give a report to the Welsh Government about a fortnight ago on what we've done in this area over the last few months, and I'll send a copy of that out to everyone in my brief after this meeting. Thank you, Chair. I don't know if anybody's got any questions.
Thank you, Grace. I think we're all really grateful of everything you sent through, and it's very informative. So thank you.
Louise?
Louise, can you unmute yourself?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, Grace, what support is provided by this coordinator for children of the armed forces in schools? Just very briefly.
Very briefly. It's making the schools more aware of counting the number of children that are in these schools. So there is a they are bringing in a voluntary statistic on the schools. They should be counting the number of armed forces children. Historically, for instance, in Swansea, I think it's been in the region of 89 children have been recognised as armed forces children in our schools, whereas an equivalent size county might be Newport, and they will have 40, and in Neath Talbot we've identified 120, and we've got a smaller county. So those figures are far from accurate. One or two schools are very supportive, and then others, they do not identify it on their radar at all. There is grant funding available for those schools for different projects, and it's encouraging those schools to apply for that grant funding and to develop projects. And it could be that several schools in one cohort could come together for a project and apply for grant funding together. So it's encouraging them to do that kind of thing. And the other thing that we are doing is we've made approach to the health board that children from service families should have prior consideration if they go to the GP or the health board with any mental health issues for children as well. So it's that kind of support that is in place.
Thank you, Grace.
Okay.
And there's also practical support we're here to offer with the schools, surrounding placements. If a child leaves a school because the parent has been placed abroad and then the child comes back a year later, we've also helped through the Armed Forces Government retain that child's place in their school of choice. So when they return, they don't have to go through the formal reassessment process. They can just retain their place in the school. So it's also practical issues as well.
Okay, thanks, Spencer. That's helpful to know as well. Thank you.
Yes, he's in, so you can go back to number 5 if you want.
Captain Chris, are you there?
Is he there? He was there, wasn't he?
I think
You'll need to unmute Chris.
There he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to unmute Chris, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
That's it.
We can't see you.
My
though.
apologies for being late. Obviously, the interface between the MOD system and Microsoft Teams isn't as well it should be. Just to give you a quick update, what we're doing, obviously, in the military side at the moment, obviously in the Swansea area and obviously in the South Wales. Quite a few reservists obviously being mobilised between the start of the COVID pandemic. Between all the units, the Welsh units in Wales, still supporting. We've got a number of military liaison officers working with local health authorities. We've got 5 or 6 from Welsh Transport Regiment working close to various organisations at the moment. We're looking at the moment, I spoke to Grace yesterday, what the future holds for remembrance parades and obviously the event in November, what we're going to do. Obviously, I believe the Royal British Legion is not planning to do parades, so I'm waiting for clarification for that. What we're doing about the Cenotaph in Swansea, what we're doing about this. Obviously, the Branwen Hall's obviously been cancelled. I spoke to Phil on Friday, and the Signatories Square, and basically for somebody to come back to see what we are doing. So what we're going to then obviously plan to support. On the reserve side and training, we've been doing virtual training from the very beginning. And we've now gone back to face-to-face training. We're not recruiting out on the ground at the moment. That will be done over the next couple of months, slow time, and we're doing virtual training with the colleges and developing it that way. And we're not doing any recruiting events on the ground, anything at the moment, and that's where we are, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chris. Any questions for Chris? Okay. Finola?
Afternoon, everybody.
Afternoon.
For those of you that aren't aware, in July, the Armed Forces Covenant Fund Trust announced 2 further rounds of the Positive Pathways programme funding for veterans charities and CICs, providing activities to support those with mental health. We had 23 organisations come forward for support. Out of those, we had 10 that made it through to the deadline for the first round in September. And we're currently working with the rest to try and get them through for the deadline in November. If any of you do know of any organisations that are supporting veterans with mental health that you think would benefit from this funding, please do tell them to get in touch with us. In Swansea at the moment, we've got the Ospreys and Swansea Football Club who were successful in round 3, and 65 Degrees North, who are a Swansea-based organisation who do a lot of work with extreme activities abroad. They were successful in round 2, but we don't have very many around the Swansea, Neath, Port Talbot area at all. There are 2 other bandings of funding Armed Forces Covenant have announced. One is tackling loneliness. That, I think, is December, the closing date for that. And there is another, Forces for Change, and that closing date, I think, is the 14th of September, but I'm not sure, or was the 14th of September. And there's also another large pot of money to help with veteran suicides and substance misuse. Has anybody got any questions? That's the end of my report. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Finola.
Oh, Grace.
Oh, she's hand up.
Grace, you need to unmute.
Unmute, Grace.
Okay. Finola is disappointing. I mean, great that we've got 3 high-profile organisations, but obviously they're not military-based organisations. Why do you feel we've not got local veteran-based support organisations coming forward for this funding?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I've only had 2 smaller ones, and we're still working with them to go through to November.
Right.
I've advertised it. I've put it out through all the AFLOs and Armed Forces Champions, and we're just not getting the people coming forward.
I suppose that a lot of the organisations have been shut down over the last few months, but not for the lack of promoting it. I know you have, others have.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jackie?
Hello everyone. I can first of all say it's a pleasure to be here. I've not actually made it to the panel before, so the whole new technological world has made that possible for me. So it's an absolute pleasure to join you. So I've got to bring an update. So updates on ongoing issues previously raised by the panel. We talked about the Armed Forces children referrals and mental health issues. So our child psychologist and lead for psychological therapies has been looking at this and has been trying to get an understanding of what a Naira and Bevan Health Board have in place, hopefully to help inform our plans. But I'm going to say this a lot now, nothing's progressed over the last few months. Due to COVID and also our psychologist being on bereavement leave. But we have requested an update. So hopefully in the next panel, I'll be able to give you a bit more information. Update regarding the withdrawal of Red Cross support and ongoing support on discharge. This service has been reinstated and we are about to enter into discussions with them about extending the service as well. So I think that's good news there. The ward-based Armed Forces Champions, again, the pandemic kind of put a stop to any progress we were making. However, we do have plans to speak to the service delivery unit directors and nurse directors to identify what wards would require Armed Forces Champions, and then to put a call out for volunteers via the internet. So we're back on top of that now, and hopefully we'll progress. So with an update, Swansea Bay Armed Forces Forum and service updates. So the Armed Forces Forum was paused between May and July, and during this time, one meeting in May was cancelled, so no actions were progressed. The meeting was reinforced in August, and we had a special meeting, which Grace has already mentioned, which was just one of the most wonderful afternoons I think I've spent. It was inspiring and just amazing to hear the Forces liaison officers who worked with the Health Board and the role that the forces played, and the local reservists, but also we have a number of veterans employed in the Health Board who totally stepped up and used all their services experience, particularly in setting up the field hospitals, which was a phenomenal feat. It was attended, that meeting, obviously it was a virtual Teams meeting, by military colleagues, Health Board colleagues, service directors. Our chief executive was there. And for me, I think Grace will say the same. For me, that seemed to create a greater interest in the Armed Forces Forum. It's reignited an enthusiasm about around that forum. So I'm really hoping that that's going to kickstart some really good work there. And subsequent to this meeting, our Chief Executive has met with local armed forces leads and is working with them to develop plans for stronger collaboration working going forward. Little update on the ALAC activity. So obviously between March and June, during full lockdown due to COVID, ALAC remained open for mechanical repairs, adjustments and the supply of critical items to amputees. And this was done in the car park outside. The ALAC building obviously being closed to the public. Each of the prosthetists, you get that right, dealt with about 3 patients each daily, and other disciplines such as physiotherapists, etc. They were redeployed to help on the wards. So the veterans were understanding that their full service had to be curtailed during this time for repairs only. But at the end of June, then the doors opened and all amputees were readmitted to the building. So we have implemented the BRSM guidelines, UK initiative for prosthetic centres, meaning it was back to normal, but with a limited amount of patients per day, probably between 30 and 40%. And this figure has now risen to up to 70%, and it's increasing slowly as obviously we attempt to reduce the backlog of appointments requiring new limbs during lockdown. So our working practices have changed, obviously, like everybody else's, in accordance with the guidelines in order to reduce the risk of COVID infection spreading. And our Armed Forces veterans, primary new patients and children are being prioritised before our co-amputees and patients, and this is in line with our service specifications. So therefore the Armed Forces Covenant is currently being fulfilled for services attributable to Armed Forces veterans. And some good news as well in terms of the ALEC service. We have recently been awarded additional funding from WISC for extra staff to be recruited over the next few months, and this will go some way to address those shortfalls. Regarding the Veterans NHS Wales activity, so since the lockdown, 23rd of March, Swansea Bay Health Board, Veterans NHS Wales has continued to offer services for veterans with a military-related mental health difficulty. So we have some figures for that. So referrals into the service of 39, number of clients who opted in, 27, so that's a good opt-in rate. A number of assessments completed, 26. Number of clients who have begun therapy, 24. And current waiting times for assessment to treatment is 19 weeks. So in line with the government guidelines, we've adapted face-to-face interventions to video therapy, which is called Attend Anywhere, and is an NHS secure web-based platform for patients with pre-arranged video consultation appointments. And this has enabled us to continue to provide both assessments and therapy, while those who are unable to access the internet are offered the choice of telephone consultation. And we've also begun to offer limited service of walk and talk therapy. Okay.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you for the really comprehensive update. I attended the UHB meeting, virtual meeting, and I thought it was very emotional meeting. It showed how much the armed forces and just get on with things and do it all right and work well with the NHS. It was amazing meeting. So if anybody got any questions for Jackie.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you. So have anybody got anything to update us on the panel? Would anybody like to speak? Grace? Unmute.
I am. Yes, just to say that I've had notice this morning, and I suppose you're aware, Swansea staff there, that Swansea Council and Neath Talbot Council are very concerned at the rise of COVID. Obviously, we've got one county that's on lockdown in a few areas, and they're not being complacent about it could happen in our area. So with the health board, they are delivering to every property a leaflet, but they've asked us to distribute that leaflet as widely as possible in the meantime, and I will send that out with a brief after this meeting as well.
Thank you, Grace. Anyone else would like to say something?
No.
Steve?
Hi guys. Just as like a sort of interaction from Woodies on our behalf. Sian and Graham, sorry they couldn't attend today, so they asked me to attend. I'm the West Wales project manager, Mid and West Wales project manager, which covers all the way up to Swansea as well. And with regards to veterans' families and to like the school side of things, the site that we're developing in West Wales would possibly be the perfect opportunity for like those kind of projects that the families and the kids could kind of integrate with. I mean, Finola was here on our open sort of soft launch, and she can tell you the sort of site that we've got and the sort of things that we could project across to them children, which I think might be something to look at in the near future when COVID is settled.
Thank you, Steve. Grace? Can you?
Thank you, Chair. There's been a great evidence of collaboration between organisations and helping each other out over the last few months. And I'm just wondering, is anybody looking for any additional support? Have you got any projects coming up that you are looking for support on?
Natalie?
Hello everybody. So I've returned to work part-time flexible furlough 3 days a week, and my main objective is to increase referrals into the service, because while I was off for 3 months, the referrals stopped. So at the moment my caseload is pretty low, so it'd be an ideal time to refer any of your veterans through to me for some bespoke individualised employability support. I can imagine that there's going to be quite an influx of veterans who've been made redundant or who have kind of been dismissed from work for whatever reason, or their hours have been reduced, for instance. Veterans NHS Wales will probably continue to be my main referral partner, but I'd love to have an introduction into primary care GP surgeries, because I'm sure there's veterans that don't go through Veterans NHS Wales that might be being looked after by their GPs that maybe don't know about our service. So I don't know if anybody could introduce me or to the GP clusters. Any questions, or has anybody got any thoughts on how I could possibly increase referrals? Because the veterans are out there, aren't they?
Victoria.
Victoria?
Hello, can you hear me yet?
Yeah.
Yes.
All good. It's just stuck on unmuting. So, Natalie, yes, we can help you with that. In our next clinical network meeting, shall we get you involved with the GP clusters and get your name out there? Because I've referred someone into you last week, for example.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you very much, Victoria. That'd be great.
No worries, we can help.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay, now.
right. Just to make everybody aware, if you, because we're not having face-to-face meetings and doing the round robin of talking, if you could send your updates into Gareth Osden, and we can read them before, and then you can speak on the day. Louise?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, because this is my first meeting, I'm not really au fait with everybody and where you're all based, and I'd just like to ask Natalie, where is the Poppy Factory based, please?
Hello, Louise. So the Poppy Factory is a national employability charity, and I cover South West Wales. And that used to be Bridgend all the way down to Ceredigion. But because we've always been a remote service, that I've always worked from home. But actually, what we're trying to do is we've had 2 members of staff leave. One is in the Midlands, one is in the Wirral, and actually at the moment their caseloads have been absorbed within the team. So because we're all remote working now and it's not face to face, actually any of the employability consultants can support anybody, you know, in any area. But what I find for me is because I've got my network in South West Wales, so if I needed to signpost out, for instance, if I've got my clients in South West Wales and it's something I can't help them with, if it's not employability related, then I could possibly, you know, so South West Wales is my area.
Okay.
But we're a national charity, England and Wales.
Thanks, Natalie, that's helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Natalie. Alison?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Sorry, my hand for some reason isn't working. It's worked for 6 months and today it's decided it won't go up in the air, so I'm very sorry. I wanted to ask Natalie a question, really. You're talking about employability. Employability sits with me in the local authority. And I just wondered whether you are involved with our employability teams or whether I can link you up to our employability teams, you know, because we've got absolute thousands of referrals coming through the door from DWP and everywhere at the moment. And, you know, but I just want to make sure that you're not missed. You know, maybe I can connect you if you're not.
Hello, Alison. Thanks for that. I am part of Swansea Working.
I thought you was, but I wasn't 100%.
I'm not. I don't think I'm part of the I'm not a project that would get triaged and directly referred to, but they know about me. So I get all the updates from the Swansea Working team. Ideally, I know they get hundreds of referrals through Swansea Working and triage. I don't know why they don't refer other, you know, veterans to me. I'm sure that the triage team do ask the question, are you a veteran? Because I did suggest they put that on the initial assessment when clients are triaged, and I hope that is the case. Maybe that's something you can check up on, Alison.
I will indeed. I meet with all the employability team leads every Wednesday. So
is that Claire and Tim?
And Andrew Chapman, and then Elliot as well, Elliot Williams, you know, so the whole range sort of we meet and we go through because you know, at the moment, obviously with COVID, the referrals, as you can imagine, are coming in thousands, do you know what I mean? So but amongst that, I don't want people missed.
Absolutely. And we've got no funding clashes because we've got, I mean, the Poppy Factory isn't funded by the Welsh Government. It's not funded by ESF funding. So if we could collaboratively work together, then maybe we could do joint funding bids, and maybe potentially if it's a veteran being supported by another employability project and another holistic need pops up, because of my military networking, I could potentially signpost more effectively as well. I wanted to, I'm glad you're on here because you're on my to-do list to answer your email, because I noticed employability was part of your remit. But my question is, what's the difference between you and Wendy? Because you're both councillors, aren't you?
Yeah, we are. And Wendy rightly chairs this. Wendy is a councillor and she's champion for armed forces. But I'm the cabinet member for Better Communities, and veterans are a vulnerable group and therefore sit within my remit. You know, it's new into my portfolio. That's why I haven't been here before. But we felt it was a better fit because I already work with many vulnerable groups out in the community, sort of thing. So, and then because, as you can see, employability and everything, that all the poverty, all the sort of that side that sits together, it makes sense for veterans to be with me. Do you know what I mean? So,
are you Swansea East, Alison?
I am as a councillor. I'm councillor, but
Birch Grove as well, isn't it?
That's right.
You're my councillor. Hello.
It's a small world. Right?
It's a small world, and you are on my to-do list to email on the back of the email that Grace sent. So
feel free to, you know, because the remit is broad. I cover all of Swansea, obviously, and lots of the services. We already got really good partnership working, so you could well, you know, be able to come and merge with quite a few sort of thing, or at least attend meetings or something, you know. So if I can help, I will.
thanks, Alison. Nice to meet you.
And you.
Thank you, Alison and Natalie.
Grace.
Grace? I did see her. Yeah, great. Can you turn you, can you unmute, Grace?
Yes, sorry, sorry.
No.
Great, Councillor Pugh, but I think we need to raise awareness with those departments as well of the other armed forces charity organisations that are out there and the different, because there's all kinds of grants and not so much grants, but support available from the different organisations, both practical and emotional. And I think we need to raise awareness, and if I can join you at that meeting with Councillor Lewis at some time, that would be great. Thank you.
Tom's on from there.
Tom?
Hello, I just I was sitting in the background. I thought I'd better put my hand up and say hello. I'm new here. Thanks for being nice. I'm the foundation manager at Ospreys in the Community, the charitable arm of Ospreys Rugby, and as Finola mentioned earlier, 50% of the programme that was bid with myself and Helen from Swansea City Football Trust. So if there's any, as Grace mentioned as well, we're not a veteran charity, but we're really keen to help and do whatever we can do within the community. So if there's any support or anyone can see any collaboration or link up or any help, or if there's something different that we can help with, just drop me a message and I'm happily get involved.
Thanks, Tom. We might not be so nice when we face to face. Any questions for Tom?
That's it.
I think that's it then.
Oh, Grace.
Sorry, can I just so Tom, I know you probably do link in with the employability team, but I know that the big job fair that normally takes place in the Liberty has been cancelled because of COVID. So they are at this moment in time looking at a comms sort of way of how do we promote the jobs and everything. So it'd be a good time for us to link in with them so that we can all work together, sort of thing, you know.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good to me.
Thank you.
Tom, I'm keen, I think, to link you up with the work we're doing with schools, because I think there could be a piece of work there to work with the Armed Forces children in the schools, because that could be something that would really engage with them. So I'll be in touch with you on that. And I've got another project outside Swansea. I'm very keen to talk to you on that as well. So I will be in touch.
Fab. I don't know if it works. I've literally just before this call come off a call with Action for Children about a mental health program within schools and a kind of development program along that. So it could be some synergy there.
There we are. Fine. I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Charis?
Hi, sorry, I just wanted to do a quick update from Action on Hearing Loss really quickly, just to keep you all updated. As you know, we've been we had a Age Veterans project, which was supporting veterans with hearing loss throughout Wales, throughout the UK. Unfortunately, the LIBOR funding came to an end in March. So I lost my job at that point, but thankfully I got a new job in Action on Hearing Loss, so I can join you guys. What it means is that we don't have that specific support for veterans, but I'm now project managing a project which does very similar work, and I've trained all my team to know the best way to support veterans with hearing loss. So we are still available for referrals if needed. I also wanted to update, I know last time we met, which was in person, which was months and months ago, people were still bringing up about the Royal British Legion Hearing Fund, which quite a lot of veterans put all their details into, went to external agencies and audiologists and never got anything through it. I'm still hearing back off service users that they've had nothing at all, no word from the Royal British Legion, medical funds, and also just being told by these private audiologists that's popped up that there's nothing available for them now. So quite a few in the lurch. I just really wanted to bring this to your attention because you're probably going to have people ask about it. All we know and we've been told by the Royal British Legion is there's no money, send them to the NHS basically. So yeah, so just wanted to update you guys with that. Thank you.
Thanks, thank you. Tim?
Right. Can everyone hear me now?
Yeah.
Yep.
My word, thank you. Apologies for my technology loss earlier. I was going to give you a quick update when asked to, but you couldn't hear me. Is now a good time to do that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I did start talking about this earlier, but I think it didn't come on deaf ears, but it didn't get through a microphone, did it? I did do a written update, but I'll just go through it very quickly. So from a Royal Naval Reserve perspective, we ceased face-to-face training in March. But we did do weekly training nights using the medium of Zoom, which were phenomenally well attended. And we covered quite a few topics from command leadership management, using different teams in different breakout rooms, through conventional training such as IT security. So we managed to keep on top of the guys in the ship's company during Zoom, and much to their amusement, we did do Zoom physical training sessions to make sure that people kept on top of their phys, much to their amusement, I think. So we ran over 20 training nights like this. I took over, and some of you are present, from Ruth Fleming on the 1st of July. So many thanks to those of you who did attend. And that was a formal Zoom ceremony handover with an ensign moving from Ruth's screen to mine. So we are. I'll go through our recovery plan in a minute. One thing which I did want to just very quickly cover was that three of our officers were mobilised to deal with government efforts on COVID-19. So of the 120 maritime reserves mobilised, 3 of them were from our own. So Lieutenant Nathan Duke was embedded in the executive board of Velindre University NHS Trust as military liaison officer. And he did stuff like contingency planning through his testing, through his desktop exercises, and worked even with the Welsh Blood Service. So Nathan, I think he must have done a good 3 months there, I think. And then one of our other officers who's mobilised into HQ in Northwood, again as part of the national COVID cell. Recovery plan, which I think was on the agenda for me to cover, was our first face-to-face training night at John Chard VC House on the 3rd of September. So we're back to face-to-face training. This was almost 6 months of no face-to-face training, so it's great to see. And we've done that in line with the Army Reserve and our COVID specific arrangements around social distancing, contact and cleanliness. And that was attended by 18 in total. So again, really, really great to see that our first face-to-face training night back now on 3rd of September was well attended. I think I got another 9 last week, and I expect about 20 or so this week. They'll gradually increase, I think, as the universities return. We got quite a strong recruiting basis in John Chard House in Swansea. So I think about 50% of those attending are currently new recruits or in that recruiting pipeline. So recruiting is really strong, and face-to-face training at Royal Navy establishments is now recommencing towards the end of September. So I've got my first face-to-face training with the recruits down at HMS Raleigh in Tor Point at the end of September. Fingers crossed Cornwall and Devon don't go into a form of lockdown. And we had an accelerated officer training program in Dartmouth with the recruits passing out on the 4th of September. So there's been a degree of face-to-face training, but now we're kind of returning to hopefully the kind of tempo that we had. Support from others. We continue to work really well with the Army Reserve. So that's such a strong link with us in John Chard VC House to make sure we maximise the use of the facilities. And we've now got new mess facilities, changing rooms, and other improvements to give us a better environment, or a better social environment when we can get back to socialising. So I'm going to plan an event to open those facilities in the autumn when it's safe to do so. I was going to do it around what would be Remembrance Day, depending upon what the kind of mode of working is around Remembrance, which I think will be a much lowered activity this year. So I was hoping to get to get that in around the 11th of November. If I can't, because of COVID coming and going, that might be towards the back end of the calendar year. But generally, recruiting is strong. I think we've got an in-unit live recruiting event back end of October. And we're moving quite quickly on getting back to a form of face-to-face training, which I'm really, really pleased about. Having taken over in July and having a unit which I can't attend, it's a bit frustrating. Okay, any questions on that?
Thank you, Tim. And nice. Oh no, Grace.
Thank you.
Yes, great. And it's so pleased to hear that you had a great response to that video event the other day. And as I sort of said at the Swansea Bay Health Board meeting, when the Army were there talking about recruitment, I think this is really a time that you need to capitalise all those lonely people who are now working from home and are keen to get back into a team environment. They have more time available now, and I'm sure that it's a great opportunity and a silver lining on the situation we're in for the reserve forces. And good luck with that.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, Grace, actually, because I think I suppose I used to stay away from home 4 nights a week because of my job, and now that's just completely curtailed, which has allowed me to take that officer in charge role in TOWIE. But so there must be loads of people out there like me who used to travel quite a lot, had quite unpredictable work patterns, and actually to get back to a working environment with the Royal Naval Reserve where you can see people, be part of a team, I think you're right, is what people would be crying out for to some degree, because working remotely from your study, like I am, day in, day out, is actually a little bit soul-destroying.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you. I'll feed that to the recruiting guys as well.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, Tim, and nice to see you again.
Yes, thank you, and apologies for dropping off earlier. That was due to me getting a very complicated IT not working here, so thanks.
That's fine. That's fine. At least you're not the engineer. We would be laughing at you then.
I think that's it, Chairman.
I think that's it now. The next meeting will be virtual on the 16th of November at 2 p.m. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you. Well. Is that November, did you say?
16th, yeah. I'll
16th
send meeting requests out, and I'll remind people if they've got anything to submit for the updates, if we can have it in writing, 10 days before, it helps then and get circulated.
Yeah, that's fine. Apologies for not getting out. So I'll make sure it's out 10 days before next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Right, thank you.
See you soon. Bye. Bye.